Hello, welcome to this episode of the REBT Advocates with Dr. Michael R. Adelstein of 3minutetherapy.com. You can find his book, 3 Minute Therapy, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life at therebt.life. And me, Tommy Bateman, the amazing counselor of Virginia. That I am the counselor of Virginia. And you can find both of our information below. You can email us your hate, your love, and your questions at rebtadvocates@gmail.com. And you can also subscribe to us on a podcast. The links are below. So today I wanted to talk about a topic near and dear to my heart. I was a prior law enforcement officer, and we want to apply REBT to that sort of work. So maybe some private security, police officers, and military may find this interesting. But before we get started, Michael, do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, thanks, Tommy. I'm Dr. Michael Edelstein. I have 40 years experience helping people with rational emotive behavior therapy, REBT, and you can find my practice link and 3 Minute Therapy link, my book, in the description below. And I'm lucky to be joined by Tommy, another excellent REBT therapist.
The counselor of Virginia. Very good. Thank you, Michael. So, as I said, this topic's near and dear to my heart. I used to be I was prior law enforcement, and it is a more emotional job than you think. Police officers do have to deal with some very unique issues. And of course, if you've been watching the news, 2020 hadn't been a very good year for the profession. And all my friends that are still in saying it was bad and it's still bad. And when I joined, the Ferguson stuff was picking up at the time, and that was pretty pretty stressful for everybody in the profession. But it's not the first time this has ever happened, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last that the pressure and the like or dislike of the profession is going to be this way. So one of the things, and Michael, I would like you to contribute on what you think would be a good way to handle this. So one of the things I think police officers often deal with is, of course, the disdain or the love, but a lot of times disdain of the people that they're interacting with, which could lead sometimes to feelings of anger or depression, not the disdain itself, but the thoughts afterwards. So in addressing that, Michael, how would you advise an officer that's dealing with such disdain?
Well, that's a good question. And the answer is to not use it against yourself. Disdain normally means people are putting you down. They're thinking less of you. And as we know in rational emotive behavior therapy and in reality, and on some of our previous episodes, that if people feel or speak badly of you, then you don't have to internalize it and put yourself down. The example I often give to clients is, let's suppose I called you a giraffe.
Mm-hmm.
Would you think you're a giraffe? Obviously not. So my thoughts don't make you anything. It's what you think that's the issue. And even if you think you're less of a person, that doesn't even make you less of a person. There is reality out there, and the reality is you're just an imperfect human who acts imperfectly. So refuse to put yourself down if you're a police officer and people deal with you with disdain, or you're a person and you don't like some of the things that police officers do, or many of the things. That's no reason to put them down. They're still imperfect humans who act imperfectly. And also, Tommy, you mentioned love. Sometimes people deify police officers,
Mm-hmm.
think they're God's gift to the human race. And it's the same thing on the other side of the coin. If people love you, that doesn't mean you're God's gift to the human race. You're still just an imperfect human who acts imperfectly, which you always were and always will be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to keep in mind. A few more things to keep in mind is that if you're a police officer, it's a difficult profession. Sometimes your life might be on the line. There's a lot of uncertainty, but that doesn't make the profession stressful. you have a choice. You create your own emotions. You can stress yourself out about that or not.
Yeah,
And
in
even
fact, let me jump on that, Michael, because that really struck a nerve with me. The profession, the way we are trained is we need to see the danger in everything, the potential danger in everything, from dealing with a little old lady that needs assistance with crossing the street to, of course, armed entry for some sort of no-knock warrant. We need to be able to see the danger in that and anticipate it and react accordingly or prepare accordingly. I remember when I was on the street and I was patrolling, I would have my head constantly on a swivel. Even when I was in the countryside, I had a semi-rural jurisdiction I worked, and so sometimes when I was in the country, I still had my head on a swivel. I was looking at the darkness of the woods, going, "Who's going to come out there and get me?" Just thinking that way. And of course, when you're done with the job and you pull back home and you're thinking, "All right, if anybody could have had me today in all my interactions, could they have done so?" And then most of the time, the answer is yes, they could have. And so we have to think about the ways in which we could prevent that from happening in the future. Um, all in all, though, it didn't make me paranoid. I made myself this way, but I got very paranoid and I got I was very stressed out, and I was always worrying about safety. And even when I was off duty, and I don't look like a cop when I'm off duty, when I was off duty, very, very stressed, very, very stressed, always worried, always worried. What do you think of that, Michael?
yeah, you said sometimes you had paranoid thoughts. What was, as we know, uh, these thoughts aren't created by the situation or even a dangerous situation. You
Mhm.
create your own thoughts. So, what were some of your thoughts that led you to feel paranoid, or paranoid normally means everyone's after you? What were some of your thoughts?
Well, I mean, and paranoia may be an exaggeration, but not too much of one. So, for example, here's a common one. Here's a common one among, I think, a lot of officers is we don't sit with our backs. Let's say we go to a restaurant, we do not sit with our backs towards the main entrance because that way we are not prepared for any impending danger. We can't see it.
And where does the paranoia come in? That sounds like caution,
Yeah.
but where
Well, I
does the
would think then
paranoia come?
the feeling that, let's say we were sitting with our back towards the door, uh, the feeling of fear that something could happen at any moment.
And isn't it the belief, I must have a guarantee nothing will happen? So then you go to the other extreme and make yourself paranoid. Since I don't have a guarantee nothing will happen, therefore something will happen at every moment.
Hmm.
So that's the other extreme, and that's a type of paranoia. Um,
Absolutely. Which,
Also,
of course, you
yeah,
get the dispute for that is, or the more rational belief is, there is never a guarantee of safety in any profession, anywhere, in any situation. Me podcasting right now can be dangerous in some form or fashion. There's
right.
no reason to have a guarantee. There's no reason there must be a guarantee of safety.
Right, but that doesn't mean there aren't probabilities.
Sure.
So if the probability is some people have a target on your back,
Hmm.
then you may not want to sit with your back to the entrance.
Sure enough.
Also, although I can see that it would be an emotional job, in other words, you'd have more emotions and possibly sitting at a desk uh, working on your computer.
Hmm.
There's a difference between emotional and over emotional or disturbed emotion. So
Yes.
you can be very emotional. We're not trying to get you over all your emotions, but just the disturbed emotions. And it's fine, even great, to have lots of emotions uh, because that's what makes life worthwhile, having emotions, especially the positive ones. But when you go over the line from preferences to demands to musts, then you go from emotional to over emotional. And that's where your thinking gets screwed up and your emotions get disturbed. And that's something to do something about.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so that's a good thing to keep in mind. I did have. Was there anything else you want to say? I had a general question.
Well, yeah, we can get into my thing after you have your general question.
Okay, so Albert Ellis has said um, that one of the main reasons people become policemen is because they have a penchant for bullying people. So from the inside, Tommy, what do you think about that thought?
To be quite honest with you, I worked for a very, very good agency, and I never saw anything like that. If anything, the personality would, stereotypically be called type A. We like to cross our I's and dot our T's. But in the end, we were, of course, here's the thing. Albert Ellis's day of policing was very different than today's era of policing. If anybody doubts that there has been progress when it comes to the attitude and behavior of a lot of police, I mean, I know it's hard to believe when you watch, the news. Sometimes it doesn't look too good, but back then, someone would crack a billy stick across your wrist, break it, and not think a thing about it because they didn't like the way you talked to them. Nowadays, that person would be anathema. We wouldn't tolerate that. So more, it's stereotypically, I think we just like a lot of them just love to help, and they also love adrenaline. I know personally, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and when there was a chance where I could turn on the blues and the siren and get after a situation to go help as fast as possible, that's exciting. That's fun, and that was one of the main draws I had. Not to mention the camaraderie among the brothers and sisters in blue.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Do you think that there's a danger in the situations you described, Tommy, to sometimes to have police officers escalate their strong preferences for excitement and to help people into musts and needs? This person needs assistance. I have to do something right now,
Oh yeah.
or else it'll be the end of the world. So then that's a motivator, and that often is self-defeating.
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, the job is a very moral job. There's a lot of gray in it. So one of the things we're taught on is and I'm going to tie this to what you just said, is we have the letter of the law, but then we also have the spirit of the law. And our job as officers on the street level bureaucrat, which is a great book, by the way, by Muir, Muir. About the philosophical choices we have to make in in those moments. Um, do I just need to be hard line letter of the law, which there is a time to do that, or do I acknowledge the letter of the law and that the subject has broken the letter of the law, but has the subject really broken the spirit? All right, no, I'm not going to arrest or even charge on this case, on this particular situation. And those decisions can wear on somebody. Did I make the right choice? Was that an appropriate thing to do? Am I a bad person for having made that particular choice in that moment? Um,
So it's not really the choice that wears on a person, but thinking if they made the wrong choice, as you said, I'm a bad person.
that's right. That's right. So, and some people, they just decide, all right, I'm going to be a letter of the law guy. Um, and that's just the way it's going to be. That way, it's easier to, well, it's a lot easier to think about the situations. Okay, has this person met conditions A for law X? Yes. Okay, arrest. That's one way to practically get over it. However, I do think there are some REBT techniques to get through those emotional dilemmas.
Yeah, do you have suggestions for RBT techniques on this emotional dilemma? And that is sometimes just because something's a law, that doesn't mean it's moral or right. So
Yeah.
one of the laws in a particular jurisdiction might be arrest all drug dealers,
Hmm.
but the individual police officer might have a different morality, which is as long as it's a consensual act
Yep.
between adults, then it's not immoral. It's
Hmm.
okay as long as there's no coercion, force, violence involved, like selling or buying drugs. How would a police officer deal with that? Would it be an individual decision? Each police
Yeah.
officer would decide whether they're going to turn their head or not. And if they did decide to turn their head, would they be risking their job if it was found out by the people in charge?
So yeah, here's the double-edged sword of that, and that's a great example, Michael. So marijuana's been the common one. So in Virginia, it's going to be legal come this summer. A lot of officers, even before the law started, saying it's going to be legal anyway. Hey, just stomp that out, or hey, get out of here, you reek of it. Yeah, and then others would be like, I smell the odor of marijuana. It is a unique smell, and now I have the plain smell doctrine can allow me to search your person. Please put your hands behind your back. Um, those decisions are hard, and yeah, that's just that marijuana is one of them. Um, but yeah, think about it this way. So the risk of being hardline and arresting everybody, and always noticing the drugs and always doing it, is you have a higher risk of physical violence coming into your life, right? Because most of the time when I arrested somebody, it was overwhelmingly it was peaceful, and I explained it to them like, this is why, and we put the cuffs on, and they said, all right, you got me, all right, let's move on. I hate this, but I understand why you have to do it. Only but if I'm dealing with people more often, uh, arresting them more often, the chances are that I'm going to deal with a much more violent interaction. On the flip side, if I ignore felonies, well, that's a illegal act on itself on the part of the officer. So you are risking your job and sometimes even your freedom. So those are two things to consider. And where do you go from there? Well, what do? You have a family that you want to come home to, but you also have a family you want to, have, supply with financial support, right?
Yeah, there's the seen and the unseen in being a police officer. The
Hmm.
seen is what we see police officers doing, but we don't see what they're thinking, the
Yeah.
gray areas where they have hard decisions, the way they may be disturbing themselves about it. So
Hmm.
I think this was a great look into what police officers are thinking,
Yeah.
and very informative. So I thank you, Tommy, for suggesting that
Yeah.
subject and
Yeah.
for
And
uh,
I'm glad we did, because right now there is and I should have said this at the beginning. I mean, police officers have a higher rate of domestic violence. They have a higher rate of alcoholism. They have a higher rate of suicide. There's a lot of emotional trouble among that population, higher than the average. So I think that's something that police officers start to need to take their mental health more seriously. Um, and lastly, Michael, before I go on, I want to talk about use of force. Um, so let's say someone's about to harm you, or about to run, and you have to make the decision. So there's legal criteria. Tennessee versus Gardner is the main one that we think. We can't shoot a fleeing felon in the back. That's illegal, right? That was decided about 30, 40 years ago that's illegal. Um, and it's surprising it's only 30 or 40 years ago, but yeah. But let's say you're in that situation where you have to use force of some sort. Um, where there's an emotional problem and a practical problem. And I do think when these bad use of force things happen, there's an emotional problem that overrode and made somebody make a practical mistake. Um, uh, for example, I remember this video of a guy who was serving papers on a gentleman that was not paying child support. The guy that didn't pay child support, as he was getting the papers and about to get arrested, turned and ran. And as the guy ran, the officer pulled the gun and shot. Obviously, a bad shoot, and officer had faced consequences for that. Um, what would have been better at that point? What's the emotional situation that would have been better? Is to control the anger, to think more rational thoughts. While this person, I prefer this person not break the law in this situation. I prefer this person not to harm me. There's no reason why they shouldn't. Therefore, I'm not going to get upset about it. They're no better or worse than any other human being. And that way you can use the force appropriately, use the force appropriately while remaining calm and not over using force, causing a legal problem for yourself and, of course, a tragedy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And don't get the impression that the way to overcome anger is to, in the situation, decide, I'm not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
get angry,
Yeah.
but the way to overcome anger is by question, challenging, and contradicting the musts that lead to anger on a regular basis. So I give my clients homework assignments every day to write out what I call 3-minute exercises, or what most people call ABCs.
Hmm.
Write one out every day, whether things are going well, if things aren't going well, or whether you're in a difficult situation or you're not. It's still important to do it every day, just like studying a language,
Hmm.
to practice, 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 to begin to get preferential thinking into your brain rather than demanding thinking. Did you have any
Exactly.
final words about REBT and police, Tommy, before we conclude?
No, I did like that last point you made. Yeah, yeah. If you're deciding to do the ABCs in the situation that you're in the activating event, it's already too late. Should have. It's better to do that much earlier and practicing it. So yeah, Michael, thanks for letting me talk about this topic. If you have guys have any questions, email us at REBT Advocates and put comments below because that really helps. This is a fun topic to me, and I can talk for days, as obvious. So, Michael, I'm done.
Yeah, very good, very good. And thanks for giving us this inside look in police officering and REBT and the interaction. So that was interesting to me, and I'm sure it'll be interesting to our viewers. And our next episode will be a little different as well. We'll have a therapist as our guest, and we'll be discussing relationships
Yeah,
with the
buddy.
therapist and some questions that his clients have brought up. And if you'd like to be on with us, if you're a therapist or you're a person with a problem that you'd like help with, and no extra charge, even though they're two brilliant RABT therapists that you'll be helping you. So just let us know below. And to help support our podcasting, and now we're going into podcasting. So we're on YouTube and we'll be on a podcasting channel. Has that happened yet, Tommy? Do you know?
Yeah, so far we have about 4 or 5 episodes up. So yeah, if you could contribute to Patreon, guys, that helps pay the monthly dues. That keeps the lights on for that one. And we really appreciate those that already have. Paolo, you're the man, and others. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks for doing that. Tommy's the tech guy here, in addition to the RABT guy.
Hmm.
So he's many talented. And and subscribe to the RABT Advocates if you're enjoying our episodes, learning from them, to stay on the rational side of life.